You want comfort, you want ease, you want to grow but without pain, you want strength but without the strain, you want victory but without a war. My friend, you are deceived. You have bought into a lie that this life, the one we've been given, the one marked by the scars of a fallen world, is going to give you the fruit of discipline without the fight of discipline. You believe that effort is optional, that perseverance is outdated, that diligence belongs to someone else more driven than you. But listen closely. God has not given you a spirit of fear, or apathy, or laziness. No, He has given you a spirit of power, of love, of self-discipline. That means that when you wake up in the morning and your flesh screams, "No, not today, it's too hard, too early, too long," you preach back to your flesh. You say, "Be quiet, sit down, we've got work to do." Do you think the saints of old walked in the power of God by accident? Do you think they just stumbled into faithfulness? Do you think they coasted into glory on a cushion of good intentions and fleeting motivation? No, they were forged in the fire, and that fire burned away every excuse, every delay, every cry for comfort. It exposed what was real in them and what was fake. And I tell you, the same fire is here for you. Some of you, you're waiting, you keep saying, "I'll start tomorrow, I'll begin when I feel better, when I have more time, when life is less chaotic." But hear me, tomorrow is not guaranteed, your life is a vapor. You are but dust. Every second you delay, you give the enemy a foothold. Every minute you hesitate, you feed your flesh, and every time you compromise, you harden your heart. You are not merely wasting time, you are wasting your soul. Why do you think Christ said, "Deny yourself, take up your cross daily, and follow me"? Because that's what it takes. It takes the denial of your comfort. It takes the carrying of a cross. That's not poetic. That's not metaphorical. That is real. That is sweat. That is blood. That is tears. That is sacrifice. That is you dragging yourself, sometimes crawling, toward the finish line with your eyes fixed on the author and finisher of your faith. And you will not make it by accident. You will not finish strong if you do not begin strong. And you will not begin strong if you are not resolved in your soul that this is war. This is not casual. This is not a game. This is a battleground, and laziness will kill you. Indifference will destroy you. Comfort will choke you. You are not meant to drift. You are meant to fight against your old nature, to fight against every distraction, to fight against the voice that says it's okay to quit. You do not need more motivation. You need a deeper fear of God. You need a reverence that grips you and says, "I have one life, one, and I will not spend it slouching toward mediocrity. I will not die with dreams still in my bones and obedience still in my mind. I will not face the King with my hands empty and my days wasted." You don't need 10 steps to success. You need 1 step of obedience. And then another, and then another. The path to diligence is not paved with feelings. It is paved with force, with resolve, with compulsion that says, "Even if I don't feel like it, I will. Even if I'm tired, I will. Even if no one is watching, I will, because I am not serving a crowd. I am serving Christ." You want to know why people don't finish what they start. It's not because they weren't capable. It's because they weren't willing. The moment pain came, they backed down. The moment it got hard, they looked for a way out. They convinced themselves that delay was wisdom and that quitting was peace. But it wasn't. It was cowardice. It was disobedience dressed in excuses. You say, "I just can't," but the truth is you won't. There's a difference. The power that raised Christ from the dead lives in you. The strength of the Almighty is your inheritance. Don't tell me you can't. Tell me you've chosen not to fight. Tell me you've chosen to bow before your comfort instead of your calling. That's the truth. And until you confess that truth, you won't change. There is no easy road. There is no shortcut. There is only the hard way, the narrow way, and few find it, few stay on it. Few are willing to embrace the suffering required to reach the end, but those few, they are the ones who shine like stars. They are the ones who hear, "Well done, good and faithful servant." They are the ones who force their flesh into submission, not through pride, but through fear and trembling, through grace-empowered obedience. Through love for the one who gave them breath. Do you love him? Then show it, not with your words, not with your dreams. Show it with your discipline, your sweat, your late nights, your early mornings. Your relentless pursuit of excellence, not for the applause of man, but for the glory of the King. That's the mark of a true disciple, not perfection, but perseverance. You want to accomplish something. Force yourself, not with carnal pride, but with holy compulsion. Tell your body who's in charge. Tell your mind who reigns. And when the temptation comes to quit, when it whispers in your ear and promises comfort, preach louder. Preach back. Say, "I was not made for ease. I was made for impact. I was made to glorify God with every ounce of my energy." You think heroes of the faith were born different. No, they were just like you. Flesh, blood, weakness, but they pressed in. They humbled themselves. They fell on their faces, cried out for strength, and then they got up again and again and again, until their knees bled and their backs broke, and their lives poured out like a drink offering. They didn't wait for passion. They created it through persistence, and that's what you must do. You don't wait for the fire. You build the altar. You gather the wood. You strike the flint, and then, by the mercy of God, the fire falls. But it does not fall on the lazy. It does not fall on the passive. It falls on those who have prepared a place for it. Those who are willing to say, "I'll die to myself. I'll crucify my comfort. I'll do whatever it takes." So I ask you, what are you doing with your time? With your strength? With the calling that hangs over your life like a banner? Are you dragging your feet? Are you complaining about the cost? Or are you looking to the cross and saying, "If he did that for me, I can do this for him"? Some of you, you've been walking in circles for years. Always starting, never finishing, always dreaming, never building, always wanting, never working. That's not godly, that's not holy, that's rebellion, and it's time to repent. It's time to say no more delay, no more half effort, no more compromise. It's time to rise with a righteous rage in your heart that says, "This is war, and I refuse to lose." You want to build a business, force yourself. You want to finish that degree, force yourself. You want to pray like you've never prayed before. Force yourself. You want to know the word, force yourself. You want to be a leader, a servant, a warrior, a disciple, force yourself. No one else is going to do it for you. God gives grace, but he doesn't give it to the idle. He gives it to the broken, the surrendered, the obedient, and obedience often looks like waking up when you'd rather sleep, showing up when you'd rather quit, speaking truth when it's easier to lie, pressing on when everything screams, "Stop." There's no secret, just daily faithfulness, just showing up again and again and again until the work is done, until the mountain is moved, until your flesh learns who's boss, until your life becomes a testimony, not of how gifted you were, but of how faithful you became. You don't need more comfort. You need more courage. You need more grit. You need to look yourself in the mirror and say, "I will not bow. I will not give up. I will not go back." And then get up, get to work. Stop waiting. Stop whining. Stop hiding. It's time. Force yourself to get it done, not because you're strong, but because he is. Not because you feel like it, but because he is worthy, because the King deserves more than your leftovers. He deserves your sweat, your tears, your fight, your everything. You won't grow by accident. You must force yourself to do what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like it. Discipline isn't birthed from feelings. It's birthed from obedient, persistent action. The desire for ease and comfort is often what destroys potential. You must crucify comfort and deny the flesh daily if you want to live a life of purpose and obedience. Excuses like "I'll start tomorrow" or "I need to feel ready" are spiritual lies. Waiting when God has called you to act is rebellion, not wisdom. A life that honors God is not passive. It's marked by sweat, sacrifice, and perseverance. Force yourself to rise, labor, and finish the work for His glory, because He is worthy. Discipline is not something that comes naturally to most people. It's not some magical quality that descends upon you in the night, waking you up the next morning with a burning desire to push through difficulty, embrace hardship, and labor with relentless focus. Discipline is not instinctive, it is forged. It is built, layer by layer, by choices that go against what your flesh wants, what your feelings crave, and what your comfort demands. If you're waiting for discipline to come to you, you will wait until your grave. Discipline is not found, it is forced. You will never drift into discipline. You will never accidentally land on a life of purpose, holiness, and endurance. The current of the world is pulling you in the opposite direction every single day. Your flesh is not your ally. Your comfort is not your friend. Everything in this fallen world pushes you to be passive, to wait, to delay, to surrender to ease. You have to fight for discipline. You have to force your body and mind into submission. That's why the Word doesn't speak of a soft journey. It speaks of a war. The Apostle Paul didn't say, "I meander through life." He said, "I discipline my body and make it my slave, so that after I have preached to others, I myself will not be disqualified." That's not poetic language. That's a man looking at his body, his time, his desires, and beating them into alignment with obedience. Discipline doesn't wait for convenience. If you're only willing to work when it feels right, you'll never become who you're called to be. If you're only obedient when the environment is perfect, you'll never see growth. The storms will come, the distractions will rise, the fatigue will grow. But discipline stands firm in the face of that storm and says, "I will not bow, I will not yield, I will not go backward." It's not glamorous. It's not pretty. Sometimes it's waking up when your body says sleep. Sometimes it's studying when your mind says scroll. Sometimes it's silence when you want to speak, or speaking when you want to be silent. Sometimes it's forgiving when your pride says no. Sometimes it's praying when your soul is dry and you don't feel a single drop of emotion in your chest. But you do it anyway, because your faith is not ruled by your feelings. Your obedience is not subject to your mood. You must understand, discipline is not legalism. It is not earning anything from God. It is responding to the grace you've already received. Grace empowers discipline. Grace trains us to renounce ungodliness and live upright, self-controlled lives in this present age. Discipline is a form of worship. It says, "God, I'm not doing this because I have to. I'm doing this because you are worthy." This isn't about religious striving. This is about warfare. This is about saying no to the slavery of sin and yes to the freedom of righteousness. And freedom doesn't feel free at first. Freedom feels like pain. It feels like resistance. Because when you're coming out of years of giving into the flesh, the first steps of obedience will feel like death. But it's a good death. It's a needed death. It's the kind of death that leads to life. And what most people call burnout is often just the pain of growth. It's the soreness that comes when your spiritual muscles are being used after long seasons of idleness. You're not broken. You're being broken in. That ache in your soul, that resistance in your habits, that's not failure. That's training. Don't confuse discomfort with disqualification. Don't confuse pain with punishment. Sometimes pain is proof that you're doing it right. You must push through. You must press in. You must choose obedience before you feel strong, before you feel inspired, before you feel capable. You cannot wait until you feel like being disciplined. Discipline happens precisely when you don't feel like it. That's the whole point. If it were easy, everyone would have it. If it came naturally, we wouldn't need to be told to pursue it. But Scripture commands it again and again. Train yourself for godliness. Make every effort, run the race, fight the good fight, stand firm, be steadfast, be immovable. These are not suggestions for the spiritually elite. They are the marching orders for every believer, no exceptions. You cannot live this life well on autopilot. You cannot drift toward Christ-likeness. You must fix your eyes on Him and move. You must move when your flesh says stop. You must move when others around you are sitting down. You must move when the enemy whispers in your ear that you'll never be enough, never finish, never change. You don't listen to those lies. You speak back. You speak truth. You remind your soul that God has given you everything you need for life and godliness. You remind your soul that the Spirit of the living God dwells within you. You remind your soul that the cross wasn't just to save you. It was to sanctify you. The Spirit of God does not produce laziness. He produces fruit, love, joy, peace, patience, self-control. If you're truly walking in the Spirit, discipline will begin to grow in your life, not because you're perfect, but because you are willing. Willing to submit, willing to struggle, willing to endure, willing to fight the good fight until the very end. And it is a fight. Let no one deceive you. It is a violent fight. You're not fighting against flesh and blood. You're fighting against lies that have been planted in your mind since childhood. You're fighting against generational habits of complacency. You're fighting against a culture that praises passivity and mocks diligence. And if you don't resist, you'll be swept away. If you don't stand your ground, you'll lose it. Discipline requires war against your old nature. It requires preaching to yourself daily. When your mind is cloudy, when your heart is sluggish, when your will is weak, you open the Word. You fall on your knees. You cry out, God, make me willing. God, train my hands for battle. God, strengthen my spine. And then you stand up and do the next thing, one step, one choice, one act of obedience at a time. Don't aim for the grand gesture. Aim for the daily grind. That's where faithfulness lives. That's where character is built. That's where purpose is found, not in moments of inspiration, but in thousands of mundane, costly, unseen choices to do what is right, even when it's hard. Some of you keep saying, I don't know where to start. Start with this. Get up on time. Show up where you said you'd show up. Read what you said you'd read. Work when you said you'd work. Be silent when you want to explode. Speak truth when you'd rather stay quiet. Confess sin. Serve someone. Forgive someone. Move. Stop waiting for lightning from heaven. God already gave you His word. That's more than enough. You don't need another sermon. You need to obey the one you already heard. You don't need more time. You need to stop wasting the time you have. You don't need to be stronger. You need to act with the strength you've already been given. The problem isn't your lack of resources. It's your refusal to use them. Some of you pray for discipline and then do nothing. That's not faith. That's delusion. God isn't going to zap you with maturity. He's going to train you in maturity. He's going to put you in hard situations where you must choose faithfulness over ease, where you must do what's right even when everything in you wants to flee. That's the classroom of discipline. That's where growth is forged. So don't despise the hard days. Don't despise the dry seasons. Don't despise the discomfort. That's where your roots go deep. That's where your muscles are built. That's where your resolve is tested and made real. The struggle proves the strength. The resistance is the point. Discipline is forged in darkness, not spotlight, when no one's watching, when no one's clapping, when it's just you and your thoughts and your choices and your habits. That's where you become who you are. That's where the real battles are won. And hear this, God sees, even when others don't, even when you feel invisible, even when your progress seems small, He sees. And He honors the effort. He strengthens the faithful. He upholds the ones who walk with integrity, who labor in secret, who say yes when no one's watching, who keep going when no one applauds. This is not about success. It's about obedience. It's about stewardship. It's about saying, God, I may not be the most gifted, I may not be the most talented, but I will show up. I will be faithful. I will use what you've given me. I will run my race, and I will not stop. Discipline is a decision. Every day, every hour, sometimes every minute, you choose what you feed. You choose what you believe. You choose what you do. Don't wait to feel different. Act differently, and your feelings will follow. Don't wait to become someone better. Be better. In Christ you already have the power. Now walk in it. Comfort is subtle. It never arrives with a warning. It doesn't barge into your life. It slides in quietly, whispering that you've done enough, that you deserve a break, that now is the time to rest, not in Him, but in ease. It tells you that discomfort is dangerous, that stretching is harmful, that challenge is cruel. And if you listen long enough, you'll start believing that comfort is a reward. But it's not. It's a trap, a snare, a slow suffocation of everything good, everything holy, everything fruitful that God is trying to grow in you. Comfort is not evil in itself. There is a comfort that comes from God, peace that surpasses understanding, rest for the weary, assurance for the broken. But the comfort most people chase isn't that. It's the counterfeit. It's the fleshly version that avoids conviction, rejects sacrifice, and flees from anything that looks like a cross. The comfort we've come to love is a cheap substitute, and that comfort is the enemy of progress. It makes promises it cannot keep. It offers safety, but it breeds stagnation. It promises relief, but it leads to spiritual decay. It tells you to stop, to relax, to pull back just a little. And when you obey, it tightens its grip around your soul. Slowly, quietly, without resistance, and by the time you realize it, you've drifted, you've grown cold, your strength is gone, and you're not even sure how you got there. Progress in any form, whether in the pursuit of holiness, growth in character, discipline, relationships, or calling, requires discomfort, it requires challenge, it requires heat, pressure, and strain. Ask the athlete, ask the farmer, ask the crafts. Nothing valuable is born in ease. The body grows through resistance. The ground yields fruit through toil. The mind is sharpened through focus, and the soul matures through hardship. But comfort tells you otherwise. Comfort says pain is bad, struggle is failure, waiting is wasted. That voice is not from God. That voice does not align with the gospel. The gospel calls you to die to yourself, to take up a cross, to walk the narrow path. There's nothing comfortable about it, and yet that's where life is found, on the other side of death, on the other side of discomfort. If you want to grow, you must learn to reject the voice of comfort when it lies to you. You must train your heart to see ease not as a gift, but as a threat when it replaces the will of God. You must become suspicious of convenience, alert when everything feels too smooth. Because often, the most comfortable path is the most dangerous one, not because of what it gives you, but because of what it steals. It steals time, time that could have been used for purpose, now given to passivity. It steals energy, energy that could have been spent in prayer, in serving, in building something eternal, now poured into idle entertainment, shallow distractions, endless scrolling. It steals calling. Because calling always comes with cost, and comfort is allergic to cost. You will never walk in your full purpose if you are enslaved to your personal ease, and it does more than steal, it numbs. Comfort makes you unaware of what's slipping away. You don't feel urgency anymore. You don't feel desperation. You stop crying out. You stop wrestling. You stop longing for more because more would require something of you, so you settle for less obedience. Less courage, less surrender, and worst of all, you stop noticing. Comfort dulls the senses. It makes you blind to what's at stake. You forget that eternity is real, that souls are perishing, that this life is a vapor. You forget that you are made for war, not for rest, not yet. There will be rest in the presence of God, but right now you are on the battlefield, and the soldier who gets comfortable in the middle of war is the one who gets struck down first. You have to fight, not just the sin in your life, but the sin of apathy, the sin of ease, the sin of procrastination, and yes, it is sin. To know the good you ought to do and not do it, the Word says, is sin. And often we don't disobey God because we hate Him. We disobey because we love ease more than we love Him. That's the hard truth. That's what has to be confronted. You can't serve two masters. You can't serve Christ and serve your own comfort. One will rule, one will win. Either you'll crucify your comfort, or your comfort will crucify your obedience. But both can't live. One has to die. So how do you kill comfort? Not by seeking pain for its own sake, but by embracing the pain that comes with faithfulness, by saying yes when it's inconvenient, by giving when it's costly, by staying the course when it's boring, by resisting sin when every nerve in your body wants to give in, by choosing the narrow path daily, not once, but over and over and over again, and understand you will not be cheered for it. The world doesn't applaud sacrifice, it mocks it. The world doesn't celebrate holiness. It ridicules it. The world says, do what feels right. Take care of yourself. You deserve this. You've earned this. But the gospel says, deny yourself. Take up your cross. Follow me. And those two voices will never agree. You must decide which one you will obey. Look around. Look at how much mediocrity comfort has created. How many talents buried. How many callings abandoned. How many marriages destroyed. How many ministries faded. How many destinies wasted. Not because people hated God, but because they loved comfort more than they feared missing Him. Comfort never demands anything from you, and that's why it's dangerous. It never tells you to repent. Never tells you to change, never tells you to rise up, never tells you to fight. It tells you to stay where you are, stay in your sin, stay in your laziness, stay in your smallness, stay in what's familiar. And before long, staying becomes dying, not the death that leads to life, but the death that ends in regret. You weren't saved to be safe. You were saved to be dangerous, dangerous to the darkness, dangerous to sin, dangerous to hell, but you cannot be dangerous while clinging to comfort. You cannot be powerful while bowing to ease. You must shake yourself, stir yourself, refuse to be tamed, refuse to be lulled. Refuse to spend your life half awake, half obedient, half alive. God is not calling you to survive. He's calling you to overcome, to conquer, and that requires battle. That requires endurance. That requires a mindset that says, even when it hurts, even when I'm tired, even when I'm misunderstood, I will press on. That's where progress happens. That's where transformation begins. The most dangerous seasons in your life are often the ones where everything feels easy. Because it's in those seasons that you stop depending, you stop praying, you stop pressing, and in your ease your guard comes down, and the enemy waits. He doesn't have to destroy you instantly. He just has to get you comfortable. He knows that comfort will do the rest. Don't let it. Don't buy the lie. Don't trade your fire for a pillow. Don't trade your purpose for a distraction. Don't trade eternity for a nap. Rise, shake off the dust. Stir up the gift of God within you. Cry out again. Dig in again. Refuse to settle, because progress is not measured by how easy your life is. It's measured by how faithful you are in difficulty. It's measured by how much you are willing to endure for the sake of obedience. And comfort will never lead you there, only surrender will, and surrender is not a feeling. It's not an emotional moment, it's a lifestyle. It's 1,000 small deaths every single day. It's refusing the easier road, even when no one would blame you for taking it. It's standing firm when everything around you is giving way. It's choosing the better portion, the higher calling, the unseen reward. And yes, it's hard. It's supposed to be. The cross wasn't easy. The garden wasn't easy. The whip, the nails, the mocking. None of it was easy. But Jesus endured it all. Why? For the joy set before him. He looked past the pain, past the shame, past the weight, and he saw what it would produce. He saw you, he saw redemption, and he said, "It's worth it." So ask yourself, is your life reflecting his sacrifice, or have you settled for a faith that costs nothing and demands nothing? Have you convinced yourself that comfort is blessing, when in reality it's bondage? Are you living for applause or for eternity? Are you avoiding difficulty or embracing obedience? You can't have both. You must choose every day, and it will feel like death sometimes. It will feel unfair. It will feel lonely, but it's in that place where you choose the narrow way, where you die to comfort, where you lay down your rights, that true life begins, real progress, real joy, real fruit. That's what's waiting for you. But not in comfort, never in comfort, only on the path of the cross. We often tell ourselves that we're just waiting for the right moment, that we're being wise, that we're being cautious, that we're not ready yet. We dress it up in religious language, cloak it in spiritual sounding phrases, and convince ourselves that our hesitation is somehow holy. But deep down, it isn't holiness that drives our delay, it's fear. It's pride, it's rebellion, it's disobedience in disguise. There is a difference between waiting on the Lord and simply refusing to act. One is birthed in surrender, the other in stubbornness. One is trusting his timing, the other is protecting our own comfort. And we need to be honest with ourselves, brutally honest, because far too often what we call waiting is just a lack of obedience. It's not that God hasn't spoken, it's that we don't like what he said. When God speaks, delay is not an option. When he commands, hesitation is defiance. From the moment his word comes, a line is drawn. Either you step forward in faith, or you shrink back in fear. But shrinking back is not neutral. It's not safe. It's disobedience. And delayed obedience is disobedience because it reveals a heart that refuses to trust. Remember what Saul did. God told him to destroy everything, leave nothing. But Saul delayed in his obedience. He made excuses. He thought he knew better. He offered a sacrifice instead of full submission. And what did the prophet say to him? To obey is better than sacrifice, and to listen than the fat of rams. Saul's delay cost him the kingdom. His hesitation, his selective obedience, his excuse-filled spirituality, it all led to his downfall. You don't get to redefine obedience. You don't get to rewrite God's commands to fit your calendar, your emotions, or your plans. When God says go, he doesn't mean think about it. When he says act, he doesn't mean wait until you feel like it. Every moment you delay is a moment you choose your will over his. Every step you refuse to take is a declaration. I know better than you. And don't think he doesn't see. Don't think he's indifferent. He watches every hesitation. He hears every excuse. He discerns every motive. He is not fooled by your delay. No matter how spiritual you try to make it sound, you say, I'm praying about it. But how long will you pray before you obey? How many times will you ask for confirmation when he already gave you a command? God is not obligated to repeat himself. When he speaks, he expects movement. He expects trust. He expects obedience, not tomorrow, not when it's comfortable, but now. Immediately, fully, without negotiation. Anything less is rebellion with a smile on its face. You say, but what if I fail? So what? Is your fear of failure greater than your fear of disobeying God? Is your pride so fragile that you'd rather do nothing than do something imperfectly? Do you think God is looking for perfection? No. He's looking for obedience. He's looking for faith, and faith moves. Faith acts. Faith doesn't sit and analyze forever. Faith hears and responds without delay. You don't know how much time you have left. You don't know how many more chances you'll get. The door that's open today might be shut tomorrow. The opportunity you delay today might be given to someone else. There is a cost to your hesitation. There is a weight to your delay. You're not just pausing your progress. You're resisting the voice of the Holy One. And let's be clear, your delay doesn't affect only you. Your disobedience has ripple effects. There are people on the other side of your obedience. People who will be reached, helped, healed, or restored when you say yes. And when you delay, you deny them that grace. Your selfish hesitation can block someone else's breakthrough. That's how serious this is. Moses tried to delay. When God called him from the burning bush, what did Moses say? I'm not good at speaking. Please send someone else. He had every excuse. He tried to bargain. He tried to stall, but God didn't accept it. He confronted Moses' resistance for what it was, fear disguised as humility. And God still called him forward, still demanded obedience. Some of you are waiting for God to remove your fear before you obey, but that's not how it works. Obedience is what kills fear. You step forward in weakness, and as you walk, He strengthens you. But you have to walk. You can't wait for your emotions to line up. You can't wait for total clarity. You can't wait until everything makes sense. Faith obeys in the dark. Faith moves before the miracle. Faith doesn't need full understanding. It needs full surrender. You've delayed long enough. You've wasted days, months, even years circling the same mountain. You've analyzed the risk. You've rehearsed the fears. You've convinced yourself that caution is wisdom. But what if it's not wisdom at all? What if it's just disobedience wearing a religious mask? You want more of God. Obey what He already told you. You want to grow. Do the thing you've been avoiding. You want breakthrough. Stop asking for new revelation when you haven't acted on the last one. God doesn't bless disobedience. He doesn't reward delay. His favor flows through faithfulness, not through timidity. Think of Jonah. He delayed too. He ran. He resisted. He went in the opposite direction, and God pursued him, not to harm him, but to bring him back into obedience. But look at what it cost: a storm, a ship, a crew nearly drowning, a man swallowed by a fish, all because he delayed what he should have done immediately. That's the cost of disobedience. That's the price of delay. God will get His will done, with or without you. But if you delay, if you refuse, if you resist long enough, you might be replaced. He loves you, He has mercy, but He will not be mocked. He will not sit back and wait forever. The kingdom is advancing, and if you don't want to move with it, He'll raise up someone else who will. Don't let your delay cause you to miss your moment. Don't let fear rob you of the life God has written for you. Don't let comfort steal your calling. You think you're waiting for the right conditions, but God is waiting for the right heart. A heart that says, "Yes, Lord, whatever the cost, wherever it leads, I won't delay another second." You must understand, delayed obedience weakens your will. The longer you wait, the harder it gets. Every hesitation deepens the rut. Every excuse becomes more believable. And eventually, you'll convince yourself that what God asked you to do was never really that urgent, that maybe it wasn't Him after all, that maybe someone else will do it. And that's how callings die. If God has spoken, don't wait for a feeling. Act. Don't wait for support. Move. Don't wait for peace to drop into your lap. Step forward. Peace comes in obedience, not before it. You will never feel ready to obey a command that costs you something. That's the point. That's what makes it obedience. Stop calling your rebellion by softer names. Stop hiding your fear under the mask of wisdom. Stop dragging your feet while pretending you're being careful. Call it what it is. Look it in the face, repent of it, and then rise up and obey. There's grace for the one who stumbles in obedience. There's help for the one who is weak but willing. But there is no blessing for the one who delays out of self-preservation. There is no power for the one who disobeys behind spiritual excuses. So ask yourself, what has God already told you to do? What word has He spoken? What conviction has He placed in your heart that you've buried under layers of procrastination? Go back to that word, dig it up, dust it off, and do it now, not later, not when it's easier, now, because every moment you wait, your heart hardens. Every time you delay, your ears grow dull. Obedience delayed becomes obedience denied, and the longer you resist, the more distant He will seem, not because He left, but because your delay has placed your heart far from Him. And yes, He is merciful, yes, He is patient, but His patience is not permission to disobey. His mercy is not a license to stall. It is meant to lead you to repentance, to quick obedience, to eager surrender. There is something God is calling you to do. You know what it is. You've heard Him, and if you haven't heard Him lately, go back to the last thing He said and do it. Stop waiting for more when you haven't obeyed the first word. The next step will not come until the first one is taken. This is life and death. This is holy and weighty. Don't make light of it. Don't laugh it off. Don't say, someday. The enemy loves someday. He doesn't need to get you to say never, just not yet. He knows that delay kills destiny just as effectively as outright rebellion. The serpent's whisper has not changed. Did God really say, do you really have to do it now? Is it really that important? And you must answer, yes, He said. Yes, I must obey. Yes, it matters. And then you move. Not because your ready faith is not passive. Faith is not idle. Faith is not sitting around waiting for things to happen. True faith moves. It obeys. It labors. It fights. It digs in when everything around says to give up. It presses forward when feelings say stop. It builds when others tear down. It advances when the world retreats. Faith doesn't wait for convenience. It creates obedience. It doesn't stand still and wait for the perfect moment. Faith produces relentless work because it trusts that God is worth it, that His commands are good, and that His promises are true. There's a lie that has crept into the church, a quiet, subtle poison that says, if it's hard, it must not be God. That the Christian life is supposed to be effortless, light, full of blessing and peace and no strain. That if you're really in the will of God, everything will fall into place and require no sweat, no striving, no labor. But that's not Scripture, that's not truth, that's not the gospel. The gospel never promised ease. It promised grace to endure. It promised strength to labor. It promised power to persevere, and that power isn't for decoration. It's for work. The great men and women of faith throughout history weren't marked by their feelings. They were marked by their faithfulness. They were not those who simply believed in their hearts, but sat back and did nothing. They moved, they worked, they bled, they suffered, they endured, because they believed God, not in theory, not in poetry, but in truth. And that truth made them act. Hebrews 11 is a chapter of workers. Builders, fighters, wanderers, sacrificers, people who left everything, risked everything, gave everything, not because they were seeking comfort, but because they were seeking a better country, a heavenly one. And the Scripture doesn't say they believed and sat quietly. It says, by faith Noah built. By faith Abraham went. By faith Moses refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to suffer affliction. Faith does something. Faith moves, faith is relentless, and don't confuse that with earning. Don't twist it into legalism. The work of faith is not working for God's love, it's working from it. You don't labor to earn grace. You labor because grace has seized you, because it has so radically transformed your heart that you can't not work, you can't sit still, you can't stay quiet, you can't be lazy, You must move because the fire in your bones demands it. The Apostle Paul said, "By the grace of God I am what I am, and his grace toward me was not in vain." No, I worked harder than any of them, though it was not I, but the grace of God that is with me. He labored, he suffered, he pressed, not because he was trying to prove something, but because he had been changed. Real grace works, real grace produces action, real grace drives the soul to obedience. If your so-called faith has not moved you to relentless pursuit of holiness, of righteousness, of obedience, then it is not faith, it is fantasy, it is sentiment, it is self-delusion, because real faith cannot stay still. Real faith cannot be silent. Real faith cannot be stagnant. It fights sin, it pursues God, it serves the church, it advances the kingdom. It doesn't ask, "What's the least I can do?" It asks, "How much can I give? How far can I go? How deeply can I obey?" The problem today is not a lack of knowledge, it's a lack of will, a lack of grit, a lack of backbone. We have more access to truth than any generation before us. We're drowning in sermons, flooded with teachings, overwhelmed with commentaries. And yet we are weak, fragile, easily shaken, quick to give up. Why? Because we've confused agreement with action. We think believing truth is enough, but James tells us plainly, faith without works is dead. Dead faith doesn't scare the devil. Dead faith doesn't shake the gates of hell. Dead faith doesn't move mountains. Dead faith sits in church pews, nods in agreement, and then walks out unchanged. But true faith goes home and repents. True faith turns off the compromise. True faith opens the Word and devours it. True faith prays when it's tired, serves when it's unseen, gives when it hurts. That's living faith. That's relentless faith. It doesn't matter how emotional you get in worship if you're not willing to walk in obedience when no one's watching. It doesn't matter how many scriptures you've memorized if they never make it into your habits. Faith is not judged by what you say in a moment of inspiration. It's proven by what you do when no one is clapping. No spotlight, no applause, just the quiet daily grind of obedience. That's where real faith lives. And let's be honest, it's hard. It's exhausting. It feels thankless. You'll feel like quitting. You'll wonder if it's worth it. But true faith doesn't quit. It doesn't ask for a way out. It doesn't count the cost and walk away. It counts the cost and keeps going, because it sees him who is invisible, because it knows that the suffering of this present time is not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed. You want to know if your faith is real. Look at your labor. Look at what you do when it's hard, when it's boring, when it's lonely. Look at what you build when no one is helping. Look at what you sacrifice when no one is watching. Look at what you give when no one says thank you. That's where faith proves itself, not in church services, not in Instagram captions, in the trenches, in the pain, in the furnace. Jesus said that anyone who puts his hand to the plow and looks back is not fit for the kingdom. Why? Because the kingdom requires grit, it requires resolve, it requires people who have seen the worth of Christ and say, whatever it takes, wherever it leads, however long it takes, I will follow. That is the essence of relentless work. It is not the work of self-effort. It is the work of surrendered effort, powered by grace, driven by faith. And don't miss this. Your work is witness. Your labor is not just about productivity. It's about testimony. When the world sees a believer who endures, who keeps going when everything says to quit, they see the power of God. When they see you sacrifice, serve, endure suffering, forgive enemies, and press through fatigue, they see Christ. That's what brings him glory. That's what causes the world to take notice, not perfection, but perseverance. We've made too much of giftedness and not enough of faithfulness. Talent may draw a crowd, but only faith builds the kingdom. Emotion may start a fire, but only discipline keeps it burning. Charisma may stir excitement, but only character stands when the wind comes. And that character is formed in the furnace of relentless obedience. That's what separates the crowd from the disciples. The crowd follows when it's easy, The disciple follows when it's bloody, and let no one deceive you. There will be blood, there will be tears, there will be scars. But they are holy scars, they are precious to him. The hands that bear them will not be forgotten. The knees that have bent in prayer, the backs that have carried burdens, the voices that have declared truth even when it cost them everything. He sees them all. Not one act of obedience is wasted. Not 1 hour of labor is overlooked. The harvest is plentiful, the laborers are few, and far too many are still sitting, still waiting, still analyzing. God is not looking for the most gifted. He's looking for the most obedient. The most faithful, the ones who say, "Yes, Lord," before they even know the assignment. The ones who show up every day, roll up their sleeves, and get to work. Not because it's easy, but because it's worth it. The cross was not easy, redemption was not easy, salvation was not cheap. Christ labored in the garden, bled on the road, died on the hill for you, and now we are called to follow, not with words only, not with emotions only, but with lives laid down, backs bent under the weight of obedience, hands dirty from the work of the kingdom. That is what faith demands. That is what faith produces. The Spirit of God does not produce lazy men. He does not produce passive women. He produces warriors, servants, builders. He fills you not to make you feel good, but to make you effective, to empower you to do the works He prepared in advance for you to walk in. If your faith has not moved your feet, it is not faith. If it has not stirred your hands to action, it is not of God. Because when God gets hold of a man, that man moves. Stop measuring your faith by how much you know. Start measuring it by how much you obey. Stop waiting for perfect clarity. Start obeying the last thing He told you. Stop thinking the work is someone else's responsibility. It's yours. You were saved to serve. You were called to work. You were redeemed to advance the kingdom.